Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Religious Stripper. I'm kind of coming up slowly to the end of my story, and then I want to start talking about more like pertinent details about things that can like help you with your life and all of that. But I do really want to finish the story so that people kind of know how I ended up here and ended up being the way that I am, and yeah, just what it takes to really kind of create your dream self and your dream life, I guess. So anyways, the last one I did, I think it might have cut off early. I have to edit it today and go back, so if it did, sorry. But basically, I talked about my divorce, and I talked about, or my marriage and my divorce. So I'm going to kind of go into the actual divorce process. And how I got out of that and how it really changed me. So basically, I'm trying to decide how much I want to share. So basically, I made the decision to, 6 months after we separated, I made the decision to get a divorce. For about 6 months, I was trying to make the marriage work still. I was still giving him chances, just chance after chance after chance, and he was just kind of failing every opportunity of us getting back together. And eventually it was just like very obvious that like not only was he not putting in the effort that I felt was needed, but I just didn't want to anymore, and I was really turned off. So without getting into too much detail, my dad's a very smart man, and he really wanted the divorce, and even though we weren't talking very much, we did talk a little, and he basically told me I needed to make him believe it was his idea. I wonder if he's watching this. So anyways, what I did was we went to go like get our phone plans separated, and he started talking about all these girls that were living around, and that was already like a big turn off to me. And yeah, so he was talking about all these girls, I think as a ploy to get me jealous. And so then I made the fact to him of like, look, you know, we got married young, we never really got to date or explore, like, you obviously want to explore other people, so like, what if we just get a divorce? Because if you go up and flirt with these girls and you're like, oh, I'm married, they're not going to want to like pursue things with you. And then when we get older, we can like reconvene and maybe like try again or something. Obviously, I knew I didn't want to try again. But he was like, this is great. I get to go see as many girls as I want, and then my wife, who's going to become my ex-wife, will probably become my wife again, or whatever. So he signed the papers like nothing. I got everything. He didn't want any responsibility, it seemed. And so I took everything. I took the dog, the apartment, all of it. And it was probably the easiest. Well, it was an annulment because we were only married for 2 years and we were young. So it was probably the easiest process ever. Still really hard emotionally. I remember when I was young hearing like divorce is like the most painful process. And I thought at the time like, well, good thing I'm never going to get a divorce because I'm a Christian girl that follows rules. And I'm only going to have one marriage because who would ever get a divorce? Don't be small-minded because that'll come back and bite you in the ass more than likely. Definitely bit me in the ass. I gotta stop cussing on here. I'm sorry. I have a dirty mouth. Anyways, yeah, it was still a painful process, even though I wanted the divorce. Going from being a wife to not being a wife was hard. Going from, you know, I've committed my life to somebody that I'm going to love forever, someone that I'd already loved for 7 years, to I don't know where I'm going or what I'm going to do, was really scary. It was also extra scary because I was scared of him. I don't want to go into like too much detail, but to this day, I had a PTSD reaction recently in the middle of a show. I'm not going to explain why. Maybe in another vlog I will. We'll see. But I did have a PTSD reaction, and in the middle of the show, like, I just remember getting ready to go back on stage while I was in the middle of this breakdown, and like a gunshot fired because it was a stunt show, and I just remember turning to my partner and saying, my husband's coming to kill me. And like, it still is like a very like real thing. Like, I was definitely like, I was scared. And during the divorce process, I was like extra scared because he knew where I lived. He had a key to the place. And I was just terrified that he would have a bad day one day and just like come back and like that'd be it, you know? So yeah, it's like, I think at this point in my life, I don't have to like look over my shoulder. Jumping forward a little, I did end up confronting him down the line and telling him to never contact me again. But I still have moments, you know, and I'm talking about this because I know this is something that a lot of people go through, that you would never know, like getting out of a toxic relationship and always having to like look over your shoulder and be like, but what if, you know? And knowing, like, I don't think I would ever really have to worry about anything. Like, I have so many like strong men around me. I have a strong dog by me. I live in a safe area. I don't think he could even find me. I don't even think he really would go that far out of his way to find me. Well, obviously I'm like all over the internet, but like to actually like find my location, you know, I think it'd be too much work than what he would want to put in. So, you know, but there still is always, I think, that part of me that is always very aware of that present fear of like, what if he comes back for me, you know? And maybe it's not even him, it's just like the symbolization of like who he was, and like the symbolization of who my dad was. Like, I'm not scared of my dad at all anymore. Like, we'll talk on the phone and he'll be like, you need to do this, and I'm like, no dad, I don't. I believe in myself and this is what I'm gonna do. And he'll be like, oh, okay, like as long as you believe in yourself. Even though his Chinese culture is like, no, that's not the right way. I'm like, but it's my way and it's gonna work. And he, you know, he lets me live, he lets me do my thing. So, but yeah, there still is like that symbolization of the fear of these men who affected me, and just like what they did. Just want to adjust that really fast. And just like what they did and what they created in my life and in my brain, and that kind of fear of that manipulation and being used and being controlled. It's probably a big reason why I've been single for 4 years now. But yeah, so anyways, I got the divorce, and then I decided like it's time to go, you know, like all this time I was like, I've had all these toxic friendships, I've come from a toxic family, I got into a toxic marriage, I don't want any more toxicity in my life. I don't trust anybody because they all have gotten used to the submissive Alyssa, and I don't want to be that person. I don't want anyone taking control of me. I don't want anyone to like judge my decisions or tell me what to do. So I'm gonna go MIA and drop off the map. And that's basically what I did. I dyed my hair blue and purple and red. I started auditioning for a lot of like dance companies, but I was like a terrible dancer, like commercial dancer. I had no technique. But I kind of started playing with circus and was like, hey, I think I'm really good at this. And I saw this audition for a burlesque circus company called the Dollface Dames. Shout out to Kira, also known as Lola, for giving me my first shot and being the one to really open the door to the entertainment world for me. I passed by this ad a couple times, and it was a burlesque show or a burlesque company, and I was like, there's no way. Like, I'm a good girl, I'm a Christian girl, I'm conservative, like, there's no way I'm going to be a burlesque dancer and like strip in front of an audience. But I kept coming up to it, and there's a part of me that was saying, if I audition, I know I'm going to get it. Like, this will be my first like real break into the industry. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to go. I'm going to do the dance and see, like, if it's like just like a strip club vibe, I'm out of there. But if it's like a legitimate like dance kind of audition, then like I'm going to give it a go. So I went, and I just remember being like, damn, this choreo is hard. And it was rough for me, but like I did it and I got hired. And so when she hired me, I was like, look, I don't want to do any burlesque, so I don't want to do any stripping. I'm just here to do circus and to get experience. And she was like, that's fine. You just can't join the core troupe, but you can still be like a variety artist. And I was like, okay, cool. So I started going into this burlesque scene, and we had to come up with a stage name if we wanted. So I decided to go with Alyssa Cirque. You know, I wanted the circus in there because that was now I became obsessed with circus. Coming out of my divorce, it was kind of like circus that just took all my time and attention. And then I was really kind of connecting with my French roots. So I was raised in a Chinese culture. My mom seems like she wanted to live in China, so she's very tied to the Chinese culture, even though she's not Chinese. My dad's obviously from China. And then my brother kind of gravitated towards that culture. I just couldn't. It just did not sit well with me, probably because of how I was raised. But I also just didn't have that. Like, my brother was always kind of curious about like Chinese things, and I just didn't. And then I realized like it was really the French that like stuck with me, like Moulin Rouge and you know, so much like cabaret and everything. And because I felt so like alone, I felt like this was something in my bloodline that resonated with me, something from my ancestors that I could connect with. And so I really wanted to just connect with that French side. So I went with the name Alyssa, because my name's Alyssa, and then my dad always called me Alyssa. So I was like, Alicia is like kind of like a French version of this name. So yeah, changed my hair, changed my name, and then I moved. I found a roommate, and we moved to Bel Air. He found this house in Bel Air, this little tiny cottage house, 2 bedrooms, and I wanted to be like right by the beach, but he was like, Alyssa, you need to come see this house. This is the place. Like, I'm telling you, you're gonna love it. Just trust me and come and see it. And I was like, I don't know. We went to go see it. The door was open, so we were able to like break in. It was like a mess, because they were still like renovating it and getting ready to like lease it out again. But I saw it and I was just in love, and I was like, you're right, like this is the house. This is where I can raise this giant dog of mine, where I can get away from my past, where my ex-husband won't find me. And this guy I moved in with, he was a Russian acrobat, so he was strong, so like it made me feel safe, you know. There's definitely a moment where my ex-husband got kind of crazy. He got really crazy, and he sent me a threatening text on my way to a burlesque show. And I just remember like going into the show and telling security, like, please, like under all circumstances, this probably won't happen, but if this person tries to come, don't let him in. And I just remember like crying on my way to the show and being like, you know, no, I just didn't know how crazy he was, and I didn't know if I was being overly emotional about it or if I was in danger. But I knew like I tended to underplay things, and I was honestly like terrified that like I was scared for my life. Yeah, I don't know that I want to go much more into that. I think I'm going to leave it at that, because I don't want to like just go into like exposing all these things about who he was, because it's not necessary to do. But like in short form, I was scared. And so moving in with this Russian acrobat into this little cottage in Bel Air that was like kind of tucked away, there was extra security there too. I had my dog. I just felt like more safe. And it was the first place that I could really call home. And yeah, it was the start of a brand new life for me, and a beautiful new life. I cut out everybody I knew, just everyone I just stopped having connections with. People started seeing my burlesque stuff on Instagram. I started getting all these messages from like older women in my church who like used to like be nice to me, and they were calling me like a strip of the mill dancer that was like spiraling down a dark path, basically going to hell. And I just was like so heartbroken at first, because I found, you know, I was conflicted, but I found something that like almost like saved my life, you know. If I didn't have a career that made me passionate, if I didn't have something that inspired me, something to strive towards, to work towards, and a safe environment that believed in me, like, I don't know what I would have done. So like, how did burlesque save me? Basically, like, so if you don't know about burlesque, a lot of people don't know what burlesque is. They've seen the movie with Christina Aguilera, which, like, I'm really glad that movie's out there, because I think it does a good job at portraying what the scene is like. Except, like, you tend to strip down to more, like, pasties and thongs, which obviously is not in the movie. But yeah, like, my life suddenly became kind of magical. You know, I was dressing up in all these costumes. I was creating all these new acts. Like, I had the freedom to create what I wanted to. Started doing multiple shows. I eventually joined the troupe, and started joining more burlesque companies and just exploring my creativity. You know, there was freedom. In burlesque, there's so much freedom to do, like, funny acts, sexy acts, dark acts, horror acts, beautiful acts, ballet acts, just like circus acts. You know, there's just freedom to express yourself. And as a girl who had been repetitively put down and told that I wasn't allowed to express myself, I was suddenly free to do that. And that was, like, huge. And so my very first burlesque show, where I went down to pasties, was life-changing. I was asked by this, like, hardcore rock and roll band to perform, and it was, like, super dark and, like, gothic, and I just got signed on to a second burlesque company called the Damned Devilles, and it's very, like, horror, blood, dark-based. And I was just coming out of my Christianity at this point. I was still conflicted, but, like, I just wanted to kind of explore this new side. I didn't know why. I just felt like I needed to, and I felt really hurt by the church. You know, I felt like they had done nothing to help me overcome this abuse. I felt like they just oppressed me into more and more abuse by telling me I needed to stay in my marriage, I needed to honor my father, when in reality, like, I felt my soul dying, and I knew, like, I was gonna die before 30 if I stayed in that environment, either by, like, being killed by some toxic man, or, like, just getting so depressed and, like, overwhelmed that I would kill myself. Like, it was just, I was waiting for death, honestly. Like, that's why I became a circus performer. I was not scared of death. If anything, I think I wanted it. Which is, like, a lot to, like, hear myself say now, but, like, back then it was, like, just common knowledge to me, and that was, like, one of the many reasons why I left the church. And I think at that point, like, I didn't care anymore. I felt like I almost, like, I just remember looking at my ex-husband one day and being like, this man could kill me. And that was, like, the first time that I really faced death, I feel like. And it almost, like, broke my soul to have loved somebody for 7 years so much, and to see them look at you like that, like they don't even know who you are, and they don't even remember anything you did for them, but, like, they had the potential to, like, hurt you. I could just see, like, he could have hurted me if he wanted to, and wouldn't think twice about it. Over nothing, too. That was the worst part. So that was why I kind of became a circus performer, was because my level of fear was just gone. I didn't care. You know, I had no fear of death. I welcomed it. So I started climbing all these high things without any safety. I started eating fire. It was an adrenaline rush, but there was no fear on the other side at all. Which made me become really, really good at what I do. Just to clarify, I did everything safely. You know, I never tried to put myself in danger. Like, I learned everything the safe way in steps and progressions. So I always trained safely. It wasn't like a reckless, I'm just gonna climb this thing, and, like, if I fall, I fall. It was like, no, like, I'm trying not to fall. I know how to, like, be a safe aerialist, you know? But also, I think, like, a lot of fear stops people from doing things, like being up really high and hanging without any safety. I didn't have that fear because I didn't value my life, because I never really got to live, you know? So my very first burlesque show, you know, I had this curiosity for this darkness. and my new boss was there at the burlesque show, and it had gone around that I was a good girl, you know, I didn't do pasties. So she was already hesitant to hire me because they were known for being over the top sexy and dark and horror based, and that was all the things that I wasn't. So she was like, are you sure you want to even be on this company? Like, you're good, I want to hire you, but like, you don't really fit the brand from what I've heard, which is fine, but like, what are you doing here, basically? And so I just remember being like, I'm gonna prove to her that I belong here. Even though with myself, I told her, I was like, yeah, I don't really do any of this stuff, and I don't really want to. So I remember walking out, it was to a Rob Zombie song, and I was in all black with combat boots and like this netted cape thing. And my hair was dyed red at the time. And I just walked out, and I'll never forget the moment I walked out. I like was so nervous, and I took a deep breath. And when I exhaled, this new alter ego that I had never known before just took over. Like the real Alicia Cirque took over. And I wasn't Alyssa anymore. I had this new dark, powerful persona that I had never met in my whole life. And when I walked out, I was a totally different person. And this whole like Christian good girl act was just like gone. And it was suddenly this new like powerful seductress. And then like I took off my top and had the pasties on. And I just remember feeling so free and powerful. I'm almost gonna cry. It's like, it's such a funny moment to think about, to think that being like, you know, and this is why I get so frustrated when people sit here and accuse me of being like just some sexy girl that never wears clothes and can never get a boyfriend because she's too sensual or whatever. I've heard it all. And that's why like my page and my brand is so much about like women empowerment. Arbor agrees, clearly. She supports. But it was because like it was the first moment, and I didn't come to understand this till years later, maybe 3 years later, but it was the first moment I felt that I could face my trauma and come out stronger on the other side. It was the first moment I realized how strong I was. So it became addicting and it became a rush for me. And it started like this whole spiral of just being addicted to the power I had to manipulate an audience's emotions, to seduce men, to be in control after having been pushed down so much by men, to the point where like it really broke my soul. It really almost did feel like Alyssa had died and Alicia had taken over. And there was so many times where I kept trying to go back and grab Alyssa again and just like kept slipping back into Alicia. Luckily, 4 years later, I can tell you Alyssa's back, and I found like the happy medium between both. I'll go more into that later, but it was definitely like a wild ride. So, yeah, like in a sense, like burlesque really just helped me find something that I needed to find in myself. Did I get carried away with it? Yeah. I'll be the first to readily admit I got carried away, and I'll get more into that in the next vlog. But I also needed it. When you go through trauma like that, you know, it changes you. It does. Like, I can't say you can't love somebody so much for 7 years and then go through an experience like that. It wasn't just one time, you know, it was multiple times, a couple times a week, you know, a few times a week. And you don't just like go through that and come out the other side like everything's great now. Who's my next husband? Like, you know, it doesn't work like that. So that was, I feel like this is probably the episode that everyone from my past has been waiting for, to know like why that happened. So yeah, that was like where the big shift happened and I became Alicia. So yeah, in my next episode, I'll talk more about being Alicia Cirque, being in the burlesque scene, and building like a name for myself as a performer, because I sucked when I started. It's really actually amazing to see what I've accomplished in 4 years, because of my trauma. But it's more amazing to see the healing that's come after 4 years. Only in this last year, really, too. So, yeah, on that note, I kind of want to end it there. I feel like that's pretty solid. Thanks for listening, guys. I wasn't sure if people would really listen to this. I know, like, quite a few friends listened to the first episode, and it's been kind of hard to keep doing them because, you know, my brand is being sexy and hiding behind the sexy girl, but I definitely feel this is the year that I need to start speaking again and telling my story, but also, like, just, like, speaking more truths that people need to hear. So for those of you who have been listening consistently, I appreciate it. I know that I've had some people come up and talk to me, so it's definitely encouraging and it's cool. So yeah, I'll see you for the next episode. I'm going to talk about how I became this dope-ass performer. Oh, shit. I keep cussing. It's so hard for me to not cuss. Yeah, and I'll talk more about, like, well, yeah, as I continue through, I'll talk more about, like, religion and becoming who you want to be, getting into the performance world, all of that stuff. But the next one, I'll talk more just about my own journey in becoming a performer and just the craziness that I went through and the things that, like, people never get to see that, like, I got to experience. All right, on that note, have a great day. Be a badass, babe. I'll see you for the next episode. Alyssa out.